Welcome to This Explainer. I'm so thrilled you're joining me today because we're going to take something that, honestly, often feels like a dry, endless list of Latin names. You know, the biological taxonomy of life, and we're going to transform it into a truly fascinating journey. We aren't just looking at isolated categories today. We're looking at the literal roadmap of evolutionary progress on Earth. By the time we wrap this up, you'll see exactly how the classification of living beings perfectly mirrors the incredible story of evolution itself.
Now, to really grasp this grand design, we've got to start with the basic rules of how we organize life. Decades ago, a brilliant scientist named Robert Harding Whittaker introduced a system to categorize every living organism on our planet. He established what we call the five-kingdom system, sorting everything into Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. This isn't just some random sorting hat, right? It's a strict structural hierarchy that essentially sets the stage for our entire evolutionary journey today.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the five kingdoms, dive into diversity in the plant kingdom, explore the animal phyla, climb up the vertebrate classes, and finally, tie it all back to evolution.
Let's get right to it. Section 1. The Five Kingdoms of Life, from Monera to Animalia.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're starting at the ground floor with Kingdom Monera. These are the most primitive, single-celled organisms without a true nucleus, prokaryotes. Then we step up a rung to Protista, still single-celled, but now they're eukaryotic, meaning they've actually evolved a complex nucleus. Next up, we hit Kingdom Fungi. This is where we introduce multicellular life that feeds on other organic matter, and finally, we reach the heavy hitters you're most familiar with, Kingdom Plantae, autotrophic plants that make their own food, and Kingdom Animalia, encompassing the incredibly complex multicellular animals roaming the Earth. It is a perfectly logical climb in biological complexity.
Moving right along. Section 2. Diversity in the Plant Kingdom, from water to land.
Look at the early rungs of the plant evolutionary ladder. We start with the division algae. You'll mostly find these in water, ponds, rivers, seas. They're autotrophs, meaning they make their own food and store it as starch, but they are totally dependent on an aquatic environment. Then, evolution takes this tiny, tentative step onto land with the division Bryophyta. Think of the mosses you see in moist, shady places. They don't even have true roots or leaves yet. They just have these simple structures called rhizoids or a thallus. And what's wild is their reproduction. They alternate between two entirely different life phases to reproduce. So they've made it to land, sure, but they desperately still need that moisture to survive.
What's actually wild here is how evolution branches out into highly specialized subdivisions when we get to the highly developed division, Tracheophyta. Within this division, you find the gymnosperms. These are plants like pine trees that bear cones, have naked seeds, and basically just rely on the wind for pollination. And then we reach the angiosperms, the absolute most advanced plants in the kingdom. These bear real flowers with ovaries, producing fruits that enclose their seeds, and utilizing complex pollination methods through insects and animals. We have literally gone from simple water algae to a thriving, complex apple tree.
All right, shifting gears. Section 3. Exploring the animal phyla, building complexity.
This perfectly illustrates the massive evolutionary leaps we're talking about in animal body plans. Think about phylum Porifera, basically a sea sponge. It's diploblastic, meaning it's built with only two simple cell layers. It's totally asymmetrical and survives through a very basic water canal system, just pumping through its pores. Now contrast that with phylum Arthropoda, think of a bee or a crab. It's triploblastic, using three distinct cell layers to build complex organs. It is perfectly bilaterally symmetrical, shielded by a tough chitin exoskeleton, and moves around with jointed legs. The jump in biological engineering from a sponge to an insect is absolutely staggering. But you know, nature didn't just snap its fingers and make that jump overnight. As we step through the other invertebrate phyla, you can watch the innovations piling up. With Coentelarida, we get the invention of a hollow digestive cavity and stinging cells. Then flatworms in Platyhelminthes add suckers to grab nutrients. Nematodes innovate a one-way digestive system, a distinct mouth and anus. Earthworms in Annelida add segmented bodies and flowing blood. Mollusks develop muscular feet and protective calcium armor. And echinoderms, like your classic starfish, introduce radical radial symmetry wrapped in hard spines. Literally every single phylum introduces a brand new biological technology.
Section 4. The vertebrate classes, and what I like to call the heartbeat sequence. The story of vertebrates really kicks off in the water with class Pisces. Fishes are the ultimate aquatic machines, aren't they? They've got perfectly streamlined bodies, waterproof scales, and lateral gills to pull oxygen straight out of the deep. They reproduce by laying eggs, and they are poikilothermic, which is a fancy way of saying cold-blooded. Their internal temperature is entirely at the mercy of the ocean.
But here is the crucial point, the number 2. Fishes possess a basic, two-chambered heart. In the grand timeline of vertebrate evolution, this two-chambered system represents the absolute biological baseline for circulation. It gets the job done underwater, sure, but evolution was nowhere near finished.
Next, we take this massive evolutionary leap onto land with class Amphibia, your frogs, your salamanders. They have moist skin and can actually respire directly through that skin, as well as through lungs or gills in their larval stages. It's a huge step forward, but notice how they're still tethered to their evolutionary past. They still lay eggs with external fertilization in water, and they remain poikilothermic, cold-blooded creatures.
But check out this internal hardware upgrade, amphibians. And the next evolutionary step, class Reptilia, stepped up to a 3-chambered heart. Now, while amphibians need moist skin, reptiles evolved dry scales to fully conquer dry land. But for both classes, adding that third heart chamber allows for significantly better, more complex circulation. It was necessary to support their much more demanding terrestrial lifestyle. And this all builds up to what we consider the absolute pinnacle of vertebrate evolution, class Mammalia, and alongside them, class Aves, the birds. Here, we see incredible new traits emerging. Mammals develop body hair and, crucially, mammary glands. Birds develop feathers and hollow pneumatic bones for flight. And unlike all those previous classes, they are homeothermic, warm-blooded. They maintain a constant, cozy internal body temperature, regardless of a blizzard or a heat wave outside.
And the biological engine driving all of that? The number 4, a highly efficient 4-chambered heart. This is the absolute climax of our heartbeat sequence. Evolution systematically moved from 2 chambers in fish to 3 in amphibians and reptiles, culminating in the 4-chambered heart of birds and mammals. It is a literal masterclass in progressive biological engineering to support a high-energy, warm-blooded way of life.
Section 5. Classification and evolution, tying it all together.
Consider this side-by-side comparison. It's a stark one. On one side, we have the poikilothermic, cold-blooded vertebrates, fishes, amphibians, and reptiles. Their internal state is dictated by the outside world. On the other side, the homeothermic, warm-blooded vertebrates, birds and mammals. They have evolved the internal machinery to control their own destiny, temperature-wise. This isn't just a random list of animal facts. It represents a massive chronological evolutionary divide between the lower and higher vertebrates.
And this is where the whole explainer really comes into crystal clear focus. According to the modern theory of organic evolution, life started simple and progressively became complex. Just look at the classification system we've walked through. We started with unicellular prokaryotes in Monera. In animals, diploblastic organisms showed up before triploblastic ones. 2-chambered hearts paved the way for 4-chambered hearts. It is genuinely awe-inspiring when you realize that the biological classification hierarchy we study today is a perfect mirror for the chronological order of evolutionary development on planet Earth.
Which brings us to a direct quote from our source material. In this way, classification of organisms and evolution are related. The big takeaway here is that taxonomy isn't just a dry filing cabinet of names invented by scientists to torture biology students. It is the living, breathing map of our shared evolutionary history. Every category, every phylum, every class, they are footprints left behind by millions of years of adaptation and survival. So, I want to leave you with this thought to mull over. If a simple, single-celled organism could eventually climb the ladder to become a complex mammal, and if a basic 2-chambered heart could evolve into a highly efficient 4-chambered engine, where will the next millions of years of evolution take the classification of life? What bizarre new classes and kingdoms are just waiting to be written into the biological history of the future? Keep learning, keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.